Clear. All right. Thank you all for joining. Apologies for all the technical issues we had. We do our best. We do our best. Before we get started today with our meetup on how to onboard new developers with Christian Dangel, Mark Stanley, and Jesse Reitsma, I do want to do a couple of small announcements regarding Shopware United. Just grabbing some time here since we're still waiting for people to join. So first of all, I want to give a shout out for the support of Shopper United program that we have launched. It's a way to get listed as a supporter. We already have 40 participants, so that's really fantastic. Head over to the website if you want to join. Then next up, we have the Shopware United Connect conference next year, February 6th in Utrecht, Jaarbeurs, in the Netherlands. It's going to be a one-day conference. We're aiming for 300 plus attendees. We have our first 6 sponsors in, so thanking DoFinder, Molly, Strix, Retino, and Max Cluster for already signing up as sponsors. That's really fantastic. We still have a call for speakers open, so if you want to speak at the conference, please submit. We're looking to fill the whole conference with community speakers. So that's exciting. There will be a business track as well as a developer track. Then next, we still have early bird tickets for that conference until 15th of November. After that, the prices will go up. Next week, we have the Solution Specialist workshop featuring me and Justin Biddle. So what we'll do there is a comprehensive training to prepare you, at least to some extent, for the Shopware Solution Specialist certification. The workshop is free. Again, on the Shopware United website, you can find it. So if you're considering to get certified for Shopware Solution Specialist, and that is a certification that counts towards your certification goal for being a Shopware partner, then definitely head over to that workshop. Next, we'll release the community digest next week, which is going to be filled with interesting links. What we also did is we made sure to publish that on the Shopware United website, so all the previous posts can be found on the website. Thank you, Herbie, for sharing the links. And last point, the community directory progress. So we are trying to build a website that lists basically all developers, agencies, freelancers that are active with Shopware. Um, we are onboarding pre-registered people. So if you already registered for that, you are getting an email and you can complete your profile. If you're interested in that, again, head over to the website and make sure to sign up. All right, that was enough monologue from my side. I think we should get started with our meetup. Let's start with some introductions. I think most of these people are already very well known to attendees here, but let's do some introductions nonetheless. Christian, you want to quickly kick it off?
Me, Christian, right?
Yes.
Okay, sound was gone. Hi, as always when I start for me. Hi, great to see or not see everyone here. My name is Christian Dangel. I'm a developer and head of technology at the Shopware agency Das ist Web from Bavaria, so southern Munich area. And I'm working with Shopware since 2015 by now, so almost 10 years, started with Shopware 4. And I'm doing all kinds of things such as the Molly payments plugins, couple of years for now, Docware projects, and try to contribute as much as possible when it comes to Shopware community. So that's it for me.
Cool. Thank you. Mark Stanley.
Hey, thanks, Sander. Hi everyone. I'm Mark. I'm been with Shopware for about 1.75 years now, and I look after product development. And yeah, I'm happy to be here and looking forward to sharing some of our plans about what we're going to be doing very soon. I'll leave it dangling.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And Jesse Rijtsma last.
Yeah, so I'm Jisse from the Netherlands. I'm owner of a little company called Yerio, providing developer training. And I've been doing that for years on the Magento platform. But since Shopper 6 came out, I was just really intrigued to do that on Shopper 6 as well. So that part is already in for the onboarding new devs. But yeah, I'm happy to share also my thoughts about how we can attract new young staff to actually help build shopper sites, shops.
Stuff.
Stuff.
Right. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I love that each one of you is coming from your own perspective. Christian, as someone who's training people at an agency, Mark as CTPO at Shopware, enlightening us on what Shopware is going to do on helping us onboard the developers faster. And yes, of course, as an expert trainer. For those who are wondering why I'm the talking head that is presenting this, I'm Sander Mangel. I work with Shopware to bring some solutions specialism to the academy team, and I work with Shopware United on a voluntary basis to make sure that we have an English-speaking community around Shopware. Right, let's dive right in. Onboarding developers, I think it's something that every agency recognizes as important. Not doing so means that, well, simply put, your developer takes longer to become billable, something that is near and dear to every agency owner. But not only that, I've seen developers simply disconnect from an agency quite fast if they don't get onboarded properly, right? If you don't enable them to do their work well. So it's not just that they are maybe not as productive, but you'll also lose someone faster if you don't offer that holistic onboarding. Christian, let's start with you. Onboarding a developer. Day one, I received my Dusty's Web T-shirt in the mail. I'm ready to get started. What happens?
So what happens is that we are with you going through a onboarding process that takes a couple of weeks. So it's not just one day or 1 week, it's really a couple of weeks. So back then when I started with Shopware, company was still like 6-8 people, just a few of them developers, was really get your fingers dirty, hands on. So I can still remember the first thing that I had to do was get into some kind of login as with customer number instead of email in Shopware 4. And it was really like debugging, trying to figure out things because it was just a small company. Luckily, this has completely changed because we were growing the last couple of years, and onboarding, especially with remote people, is such an important thing that comes in every interview. So they are indeed asking, is there some kind of onboarding process? So what we came up with is, as mentioned, onboarding process that lasts for or takes a couple of weeks. First day is, of course, getting the person somehow ready to join our repositories, clone the shops, and get access to everything. And then we start with the basics on how we develop things. So the basic workflows, not really specifically with Shopware, but in general, the workflows we have. And when it comes to the Shopware part, so we figured out that there are a couple of things that you can do or that are basically obstacles. So I talked to a lot of my colleagues. What the obstacles are that they are facing or were facing. And sometimes with Shopware, especially some come from not even from an e-commerce sector or industry. It's hard to even learn what Shopware is. So I'm a huge fan of going through all features of Shopware, not speaking in a technical or developer way, but really tell the person what you can do with Shopware. Because if you are developers out there or agencies in the audience, You might know the problem or thing that can happen when you develop a feature that already exists in Shopware, but you didn't know. So first thing, crucial thing for me is to really teach Shopware itself to developers. And then we go with all kinds of different options. So of course, self-learning by watching videos, because we can't always sit next to the person or be in a Zoom meeting. But what also helps a lot is some kind of mentorship thing where you have the person, so me as a already onboarded developer, develop a new feature. And it's like quick live coding. The person is watching you, and you tell the person why you are doing what is the purpose. So that's one thing. And
That's more pair programming, right? That's
pair programming,
right.
exactly.
So you start more with let's say do-it-yourself materials that someone trains up on the basics,
Yeah,
and then at some point it's very important to get them to have actual practical knowledge by pair programming with you. I get it. Right. And
exactly.
maybe zooming in on that DIY material that you're providing. Is that materials that you've written yourself? Is that things that maybe you took it from the Shopware website or from Jisse's videos?
So basically the Shopware resources, because if we would do it ourselves, we need to maintain it, and that's just not doable because we are an agency. We have to work for our customers, and there's no
Yeah.
time with the size of us. So do it yourself is videos, Shopware videos, or either Jisse videos, documentation, and that's the self-studying part.
Yeah. All right. That makes a lot of sense.
So
So that gives a bit of a primer. And what kind of a level are you trying to achieve with that self-help stuff, right? Because I'm just going to assume that no one
yeah.
becomes a senior developer with the self-help materials. What are you aiming for?
No, so that's only a kind of fallback solution because we can't always sit next to the person. This brings because for me it's important. I mean, I still don't know everything in Shopware. So I would love to have, or maybe there's something planned, to have some kind of learn path that brings me in kind of a subconscious way through the whole story of Shopware. Because for us as an agency, earning money is of course the most important thing. So speaking of the self-taught stuff is the basics of Shopware, so that the person knows things, knows where to look up things, because every now and then you end up by, oh, I can remember that I at least read it somewhere. But the
Yeah.
most important thing for us to learn or teach the developers the more kind of senior level is by using kickoff meetings. So we write concepts, we have kickoff meetings, including developer stakeholders and quality assurance. And we really try, especially for new developers, discuss it in detail as good as possible, so that the best kind of thing is that the new developer just needs to write down the code because everyone told him what to do. And that's the thing, that's the kind of good and bad thing with Shopware. You really learn it by, let's be honest, only getting your fingers dirty, debugging
By
it,
doing
and
it. Yeah.
by
Right.
doing
Right.
it. Yeah.
By doing it
Could I jump in there? I'm not sure if that's
S-
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, what I'd love to hear from you, yes, is I know you do quite a few boot camps, and I'd love to get your vision on, how do you get a developer started, and to what point can you get them with a boot camp?
Yeah, definitely. First, maybe back to Christian. How long is that period of onboarding then in total? Is it kind of like a
um
month, or depending on the person, or?
Kind of depending on the person, but mostly 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's only the initial thing. I mean, everyone's learning everything, but really to make sure that the person can work for us and be part
Yeah, for
of.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I recognize with other agencies, because as a trainer, well, I'm doing my own boot camp, and that's kind of like, come to me and I'll sort you out. But on the other hand, I'm also visiting a lot of times the agencies themselves teaching their own team, and then a lot of times actually there's juniors in there as well. So I'm kind of like part of that boarding process as well. And at that moment, what I really see is indeed like it's depending upon the person, but it's also depending upon how low you aim at first and how high you aim at the end, and what goes on in between. And maybe that also depends really upon your own expectations, because I've seen actually that the really good developers come in and really go fast through everything. At first, they know nothing about Shopware. And then in the end, they know everything, and they're almost up to the level of senior developers, except for maybe that they lack years of real life experience with e-commerce. But then on the other hand, there could be also junior developers that are so slow in their progress. And I've also witnessed, therefore, agencies that actually have kind of like an onboarding process of a half a year, even, or even up to 1 year, if really the starting level is almost at a minimum, that they do know a little bit about PHP, WordPress, but then they need to be taught all the way up to Symfony development and etc. To really turn everything inside out. And then if they don't get it right away, it's well, sometimes a reason for agencies to say, okay, but this is too much time. We're going to remove this person from the whole boot camp thingy. Or that they see, hey, but in the end, it's going to be worth it because otherwise we don't have any developers. So yeah, the difficult thing for me is basically always to come up with a fixed format of training, boot camps, etc. Well, actually, everyone is different, but the alternative is basically that either the agency needs to pick up on that education level themselves. Then you need to be large enough or have not a lot of projects to do to actually spend time with that newcomer and to guide that person step by step. Because I find the remark that Sander just made a couple of minutes back quite interesting. I think that indeed self-learning, so watching the videos that I created in the past, or reading documentation online, even going into ChatGPT and just copying things over there, it's all there for the benefit of well, working with the code, and then through working you actually get there. But that self-learning only gets you so far. Because sooner or later that self-learning needs to be converted into real life. And what I try to do is always with my own training is just try to mix in as many real life things that I've seen in the past. Just to make sure that they kind of like get a feeling, okay, this is the clean situation, and this is the actual dirty situation that you can get to. But still, training, boot camps, it's just like school. It's kind of like shaping a fundament. But I think it's fair to say that a real developer only becomes really senior actually by doing it. And that's kind of like, of course, where the onboarding stops and where the practical the practice starts.
If I could just add, because Sander was strongly referring to the do-it-yourself part, that is really like the fallback stuff if there is nobody else, if you have a kind of lazy Friday to have a relaxing first week for the new developer. So it's always learning with someone else, either doing an hour, day, full day lesson, but it's a growing process, and that's the thing. So the question is, when is onboarding done? Because it can't be done when you have a senior Shopware developer, because it takes ages, because you learn it while doing. And that's a great thing with especially the two of us. We as an agency, for us, onboarding means the developer knows Shopware so good that including kickoffs, the person can do tasks for our customers in a good and efficient way. For you, your goal is to really build strong and well-educated developers using bootcamps. And that's the main thing to consider when and I think the combination, if you're an agency at least, the combination of both of them, both of us, is the perfect way, because we also have educational tracks for everyone later on too, of course, because you never stop learning.
Yeah, well, you're ending with the right thing that sets me up for a big question that I also wanted to get out of this meetup. I've seen, well, I've been educating developers for years, literally more than almost 15 years, if I also take in Magento and Magento 1 for that part. With Shopware, it's a little bit less. And I basically started to do Shopware around COVID, like nothing to do and etc. And right at that time, I also hooked up with a couple of agencies, and I was not there yet with Shopware, but with Magento, helping them to onboard new developers. And they came right from school. And I don't know the right terminology then for them, like if it's millennials or Generation Z or whatever. But I do notice that actually they just went in for the job, and even worse, instead of onboarding while meeting their colleagues and etc., everything was done remotely, kind of like against their own will. And for some that turned out okay-ish. But for some others that turned out to be horrible simply because they lacked the background of social interaction with colleagues because they never worked for a boss before. They actually lacked the communication level and etc. So in general, my question that I find kind of interesting is how do you cope with millennials and Generation Zers that actually lack the enthusiasm for coding? How do you onboard them? I'm not sure if Christian, you can jump in there if you have any clue what I'm after.
Christian, how often do you hire demotivated
Yeah, well, that's maybe
youngsters
the other
that
hand.
really don't want to work with your company, but you still are dedicated to training them up?
Thanks for already answering the question with your question. So
Exactly.
yeah, but still, we still need to face reality that we might be, and everyone who's in here, because it's not spare time, but we might be really motivated because our job is our passion. But it's okay that not everyone is the same as we are. So you, in fact, you have, I wouldn't say demotivated, but you have those super highly motivated, private, intrinsic motivated people,
And
and
then
those
regular people.
regular people that love the job, but it's just still a job.
Yeah.
And I think you really need to figure out, because I like to personally motivate people, maybe some open source project in the spare time, or a support colleagues, but you really need to figure out if that person is that kind of person or not, and be fine with it if that person is just a, let's call it, regular developer person.
Well,
But
so if I would continue from that part, I
yeah,
personally think that actually once a person is enthusiastic and picks up upon open source projects right away, then actually you don't need to do much to just push that enthusiasm also a little bit more in the direction of Shopware and say basically, well, these are the resources, these are the events you can attend. There's maybe a hackathon around. And then actually automatically that person sees, oh, but this is fun because in general learning is fun. But what if actually for a person learning is less fun simply because they also had an experience in high school, in college, where actually you were on your own, you needed to do the thing that you needed to do to pass the exams and etc. Well, then that person could still be good as a developer, but just not eager to learn. And without actually a strong guidance, that person would actually be less effective in learning as well. And that's kind of like for me, not my job, because as an external teacher, I just say, well, that's the problem of the agencies. But I think actually the agency needs to come up with a solution there to make sure that learning is still part of that process. Because otherwise, if the enthusiasm is leveled out, then actually the eagerness to learn new things is also leveled out. And then before you know it, you're sitting there with a team that is not keeping up to date anymore because they just want to do the job and that's it.
But
Yeah,
that's the exact thing before I wanted to ask Mark for his opinion. Sorry. The I'm trying to figure out if a developer is might be really good, but let's be honest, we're not always very fascinated by tasks that we have to do for customers. But maybe a side project helps the person to figure out how amazing development is, and then you have the automatic motivation to learn things. So maybe Mark, what's your opinion on that part? How to with people who are not.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting discussion, because essentially what we're talking about here is, sort of macro trends around our education systems. And I can talk about the British education system, and it's very much over the last decade, I would say, has been really focused on just whipping kids to get them through exams, right? It's not really about teaching people to have a inquisitive nature about the world around them. And also, I would say there's so much abstraction these days in computers and computer science. You don't really so much play with the metal like you used to back in the day. And I'm sort of then revealing my age. But, it's not really about like, playing with compilers, making video games, seeing things move on the screen or whatever. It's a much higher level that a lot of developers learn these days. So there's a disconnection now, I would say. So whipping kids through education to pass exams, a disconnection around what actually is happening under the hood with computers, because at the end of the day, it's all about messages, memory, and compute power and things like that. And I think the other thing that's interesting and contributes is because of, the remote nature of the world now post-COVID, work can often become quite transactional, and it can't necessarily be about sort of like some bigger thing or some bigger goal. And I think that this then leads to disconnection as well. At my last job where I worked at Education First, we spent a lot of time thinking about how we can make online learning better than physical learning, right? So we would have students in classes learning English, German, French, Italian, EFIGS basically. And we could never really sell the online learning product as something that was equivalent, because everyone was thinking, well, the online thing is just going to be like Zoom with some PowerPoint slides. And so we spent a long time really revamping our educational products so that the self-study was much more interactive. You would get immediate feedback, that there would be, the things that you were trying to learn in the language, you'd get marks on your grammatical composition. It would start measuring your vocabulary. You see this a lot with like Duolingo and other language learning apps. But we also made sure that we had a very strong online learning component with a teacher, and you would see a lot of like live feedback about how much talk time you're doing, how you're actually practicing. So you get a report after the class showing you where you'd actually spoken. It would give you like a score on your pronunciation. And all of these things, helped contribute to the engagement and get people sort of dragging them along the self-study learning journey. But the thing that was absolutely electric and made a real difference was when we started sorting students into cohorts and groups of about 12 or 13, getting them together into groups roughly about the same level and setting common goals for the cohorts that they could achieve together in a leaderboard had an absolutely electric effect, because all of a sudden everybody then is like, the analogy I would use is like the difference between trying to learn to play an instrument on your own and then all of a sudden you're put in a band. And then it becomes a bit more sort of like competitive, and everyone wants to learn together and to do more. So I think,
but you're still referring then to an online group, right?
yeah, because it's the I mean, if it's the nature of like a cohort of people that you are effectively learning remotely, then it has to start online. But there's no reason why it couldn't then move into something physical, right? You could sort people into groups geographically if you have a large enough population base.
Yeah.
So I think these are some of the things that we need to think about in terms of how do you kind of like get people engaged? How do you get them working together? And I think the other thing that I would say is important is the whole theory of learn, try, and apply. You need to be able to learn something. You need to be able to try it. and you need to see how it breaks so that you try it again and it doesn't break, you know? And it's very hard if you're self-study learning and all you're doing is like learning the theory, like learning it from a book.
Yeah. So I personally find it good to hear that you're sharing the thoughts about the millennials and Generation Zers and etc. But yeah, we can still turn that around. Personally, as a trainer, I often see myself just joining a team temporarily and then going out again. So I'm not part of the whole onboarding process or the process that is happening afterwards. But I think all of those things. What did you say? So
Learn, try, and apply. Yeah,
learn, try, and apply.
like a pedagogical for the like theory.
Yeah, exactly, and it makes sense that as a teacher, I'm part of that learning curve. Sometimes I'm also there guiding people during hackathons or just the live coding bit or exercises and etc. But I think actually that last part, applying the knowledge, could of course be part of a really small exercise that whatever you've learned, you're applying it right away in the same hour that you've learned it, and that's theoretically part of an educational hub as well. But on the other hand, personally, what I've seen is still that even though a group online is more engaging than just solo online, a group in person even is more electrifying. And that in-person stuff is something that, during COVID, we thought like, hey, but we can overcome this, we can work this out and etc. But I think actually a lot of people just found out that right after COVID, as soon as you could get back into groups together, then you would. And I think actually that applying it is either a really clean thing that you've created something and that you've created a piece of code and you want to apply it in a certain situation, but then that certain situation is under your own control. While in real life, the e-commerce shop is actually something that is not just applied by you, but all of your colleagues and Shopware and the unexpected behavior of end customers. So therefore, the applying bit is actually the real life thing that makes a junior into a senior. And I personally see that's actually the level at which you need to work together with colleagues to actually get the best out of it. So I'm not sure about how you see that. So how much could an online educational program be covering everything? Or would still be something that the agency is arranging for, so in-house training sessions or just pair programming with an experienced developer, an experienced colleague of yourself. So that apart from that online thing, the agency also needs to jump in to make sure that final bit of the learning process is also just experienced.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's not going to be one ring to rule them all. There's always going to be a mixture of all sorts of different things, and of course, much of it is also about learning the personalities and the behaviors of the other fellow developers that you're working with, right? And the particular styles that everyone has and what they're going to point out in reviews and things like that. But what I would say is, you know, a lot of it is just getting people going and building their confidence and having some sort of inspirational or aspirational goal that they can get to. This is why, you know, famously, you know, at Facebook, you know, you have to essentially submit, you know, a change into the main line and get it live within your first 2 weeks, right? That's something they still make everybody do. And
I think actually that's the same point that Christian also mentioned, that as soon as you have a side project, some kind of open source thingy or whatever, then it basically just kickstarts your enthusiasm.
Yeah. Exactly, and that also what we see in our agency, that also is a benefit back in the company, because we, as mentioned, we have some kind of educational tracks every now and then. So people who are motivated and learn maybe a new technology or paradigm, design pattern, whatever, bring that back to the company with company-wide lessons and teachings, and that's the next great thing, because if you have suddenly a person who's highly motivated, in the spare time brings back that stuff to the company. Maybe the person will also be a speaker one day. And then you have a new person motivating other persons. And that could just be like a snow, how you say, snowball effect.
Yeah.
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 I think
So,
the mentorship thing is really, really important because
Yeah.
another thing, you know, but put yourself in the shoes of somebody who's new and learning something. Now, you know, you guys know Shopware inside and out, but now imagine that we're learning to play the saxophone, right? And all of a sudden you're paired with somebody who's fucking kick ass at playing the saxophone. You're going to think, well, you're amazing. I'm never going to be able to do that, right? But if you are with other people and you can see the stepping stones of how you get there, and you can have mentors at different levels, it suddenly makes you think, I can do that. I reckon I can do that bit. Yeah, I can do that bit. And it's not so daunting. So yeah, I think the power of the community should be to bring people together and to then start figuring out where your next mentor is and how it's going to work, right?
well, that's I think the main goal of Shopware United, right?
Exactly.
So also make sure that community members are able to find each other. Um, so Sander, you mentioned already the Shopware United Connect, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Our conference.
I'm personally I've seen actually that Shopware is pretty large in Germany, obviously. There's now an expansion to other countries, and I think personally that right after Germany, the Netherlands actually became a good second market, not especially in size, but maybe just in activity to the very least. And in the UK, maybe a good third, and who knows, the US. But that expansion is happening. But I think therefore also it's more important for that community to just meet up and see each other, apart from the official Shopper events. So the Shopper Community Days, I've been there a couple of times, really enjoyed it. But I'm kind of like eager to see also that the Shopper United Connect is going to work out as well. And not necessarily for me just to see my friends and drink beer. That's what I usually do. But also basically to welcome those same newcomers as well, and make sure that they also find out, hey, but it's actually quite fun to be in a community, and it's quite fun to collaborate with other developers. So the passion could go multiple ways, right? So certain people they simply like the social part. Other people they just want to go for the technology and make sure that there's a deep dive. And I think actually a healthy community would just facilitate all.
Yeah, yeah. So I agree. Yes, I think first of all we need to get the community together to foster, right, that partnering in learning. Um, I think it's important that we also have content at the conference around how to train up developers. Indeed, I think Dusty's Web in general is quite good at training up their developers, but I know many agencies, especially the smaller ones, are struggling from time to time to have the right materials, have the right ways to learn. Um, Maybe as a segue into that, Mark, if I may put you on the spot, what are Shopware's plan to, in a concrete way, support agencies and developers with training them up?
Yeah, thanks. So one of the challenges that we have is that we have a lot of information and documentation, and it's in many different places. You know, there's the developer websites, there is Academy, there's all of the Figma and design side of things. We've got lots and lots of stuff, and it's all over the place. Some of it is very, very new, and some of it is a bit out of date. And what we've been working on this year, and we are looking to release in a few weeks' time, in the middle of November, is really something where we bring all of these things together into one place. We're calling it the Community Hub. That's a work in progress name. Maybe it will be the final name. But the whole goal of it is to bring everything together, all the information that everybody needs into one place, to have a series of learning pathways to guide people through all the things that they need to know based on several personas. The personas that we're working on at the moment are developer related, but we'll also bring online solution architects and admin users, etc., etc. And the goal is to, one common pathway is to, I'm a brand new developer to Shopware. What's everything I need to do in order to do the things that I need to do? And another one would be, I'm a Shopware 5 developer. What's everything I need to do to learn about Shopware 6? We will also introduce soft gamification mechanics, a few leaderboards, points when you complete things. And really what we're measuring is contribution. So these are the things that I do and I get rewarded, but we're also rewarding kudos, which is also then sharing the love and also mentoring other people as well. So those are the kind of two key mechanics. We will be moving away from video content as the primary driver because video is very difficult to deal with and it goes out of date and you've got to re-record it. So it's all going to be primarily markdown driven in the back. It will be open sourced in GitHub and it will then be rendered into the community hub. This means that everybody in the community can contribute to these learning pathways. If there's something that's blatantly wrong or highly apocryphal, then please create a pull request and we'll get it sorted. And also in time, we want to be able to make sure that this is the one-stop shop, so to speak, where we can have all of the events, Shopware United events, all in one place that people can see. We can see activity of what's happening in the community, what changes people make, how we're responding to bugs that are being fixed or the community are fixing bugs. It's all in that place. And we also want to be able to bring in a way for mentors to be able to volunteer in the platform so that they can then help other people that are struggling. And if I take a sort of step back, 1,000-foot view, the overarching goal is get all of our information into one place, make it structured. And if we can solve or help solve the problem of you have a new developer onboarding, you can point them at this place and it will get them so far the way, then for me, that's a success.
The cool thing is, if I may add, what I like with the community hub is it's not only for new developers. So what I might be a bit special, but I'm always looking for those missing things in my knowledge and trying to improve. And I just love it because I'm pretty busy, like almost everyone in agencies, but every now and then I'm trying to do new learn paths, continue and figure out and search for things that I didn't know before. And that's a cool thing, not only for new developers but also advanced developers. Just go through it and you will learn stuff that you didn't know that exists, and that's a cool thing for me personally.
Yeah, we see it as a sort of like layers of a cake. And so there's a sort of foundational piece that, should be able to, somebody new to Shopware, regardless of their ability, can go through. And as you go up, it becomes more about insights and expertise.
Right.
Launching
Yeah,
November.
we're looking forward to it. I do like the fact that you're not just rewriting everything, right? It's truly an index of what already exists as well, and I think that is definitely a powerful idea. Kind of like those olden days GeoCity start pages where you go to get started with your browsing, right?
Yeah, and I'm still pressurizing the team because I really want ICQ to be embedded in it.
Yes, and animated GIFs, and I want to have my own WAV file there playing my music that reflects my mood.
Yeah.
So we're talking about onboarding newcomers. So we need to explain all of this, right?
I don't really understand.
Generation what?
I don't really understand why we moved to icons as emojis. I'm perfectly happy with ASCII ones.
Brilliant. I love that. So maybe we're coming up on time. I do want to leave a little bit of time for maybe some questions from the audience, if that's okay with all. So if anyone has a question, please post it in the chat or raise your virtual hand by hitting reactions and then saying raise hand. for a chance to pose your questions. I know everyone is dying to ask questions. You're full of them.
I might
Maybe a
ask
bit
a
shy.
question.
Yeah, Herbie, please.
Although I'm not a developer, I was just thinking we had in the beginning of Shopware United, we had a project which was called Coffee and Learn. Coffee and Learn was the idea behind was that it was more or less onboarding new developers, but new agencies as well. There was an existing agency with lots of experience on Shopware, and there was a new agency jumping into Shopware. And we brought them together. They met on a regular basis for an online meeting. It was also during Corona times. And then the experienced developers got together with the new developers in the new company. Is that something we might reconsider to restart again?
I would be in favor anyway. But there's already the Shopware United, what is it called? Breakfast meetups?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do have two meetings. We have the community breakfast, which is more related to business owner, and we have the developer brunch, which is more related to developers. But these are meetings which are happening every second month. So I'm not sure if that's the right target. I have another question. So you could answer that question, Coffee and Learn, later, Sander. The second question is, Shopware United conference, we have the second day where we want to do workshops. Does it make sense to run a workshop dedicated for developers on the second day?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a good point, Herbert. So we are looking into having workshop spaces available on the second day. Indeed, to have a solutions architecture workshop. I know there were a couple of sponsors interested in running their own workshops. Yeah, definitely. It would be great to foster some more of that deep dive learning, right?
Great.
Yeah, I have a question for the. I'll let you do the questions then.
Does anyone, probably Christian, would have the most knowledge, have some sort of measuring framework for analysis how far someone is on the shopper learning ladder? That is interesting. We are onboarding a developer as we speak, and it's hard to properly assess if developer is just slowly improving or the developer will never really get up to speed. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Christian, maybe you want to go first on this?
So unfortunately, things like this, these just happen. So first thing, always, I guess you are doing consider the human, the person, and not just the skills. So it's depending on your company, your projects. Sometimes it's kind of way more important to have somebody in your team who's just amazing instead of someone no one can really relate to that person. To measure the skills, that's in theory not really possible. I mean, in theory it's possible. In reality, it's not really possible. So you would need to compare a person as a reference for a task, maybe let both develop the same feature, and still you have that kind of thing that can't really be compared. But you get a feeling if the person is really very, very, very slow compared to a perfect reference person, how the person should be by now. But what is the better idea, at least for us, is to maybe ask the team. If you really have some troubles with the speed of the person, maybe ask the other colleagues what their opinion is, because it's the team basically. And if the person is too slow, ask the person if is there reason, do you need any onboarding from Yisse maybe. But I wouldn't really measure it technically, but more ask the people. Maybe. I hope that helps you.
Yeah, if I could jump in, I think indeed there's no measurement to say how much knowledge a person has or not, because often it's not depending upon the knowledge itself. It makes much more sense to approach or to see how well a person is solving a specific problem for a client, or reading through existing code and etc. So it's not concrete skills. However, you can still make sure that those skills are measured in a different way. I mean, but that's by comparing, like Christian said, to other people. On the other hand, what I found pretty interesting as well is just to face the fact that not all developers are equal, and they might be paid in an equal way anyway, but still they have different skills, and therefore on a profitable level they're also different in profit. They might be put away for client projects at the same hourly rate, but that still doesn't really make sure that they're all productive on the same level. But I think that should be okay. It's just that if one person is at the upper scale, so hyper productive, then you're really happy, and that's kind of like the developers that we're always looking for. And then at the lower scale, or the lower end of the scale, it might be that that person is just not productive enough to keep on the long run. But yeah. Maybe that's also kind of like what the question was about. How low can you go before you actually need to drop a person and basically say goodbye? But that's really depending upon like the tasks that you give that person as well. So the more junior, the less expectations you might maybe need to have, and therefore the simpler the tasks need to be that are put into that person's hands. But it's all depending. But that's just my 50 cents.
Yeah, my 2 cents would be when I look for developers, so this is way up the starting process, I really value smart people who are hungry to learn and love solving problems. And I'm less fussy about what particular languages they use or other things like that, because if somebody exhibits those 3 qualities, they will self-learn and figure the things out they need to do. And everybody starts at a different level, but what you're really looking for is that kind of that growth track. And the other thing then, to just echo what Christian said, you never really know what might be blocking somebody or making them not necessarily seeking out information. It could be some sort of team dynamic. It could be something that's happening. It could be something happening in their personal life. Sometimes, people just need the help to just get going, right? And so those would be the things that I'd be sort of looking out for.
Yeah, I just want to add, I love what you were saying, Mark, because I really get sometimes goosebumps if I know, okay, that person doesn't even know Shopware at all, but the person might not be a backend developer, but a developer. Because I'm always looking for developers, and I really see those smart people. It really gives me goosebumps. And I mean, Shopware is just e-commerce and Symfony. You can learn that stuff, but you can't learn that fully development skill set in your brain if you find such a person.
Yeah,
just don't care if they know.
Keep them secret, keep them safe.
Yeah.
Right, wonderful. I want to thank you all very much for sharing your insights today. I really appreciate it. Just before we close off, maybe a quick shout out or a last parting thought you want to share. I'll start with you, Christian. Quick one.
Sorry, I was just giving an emoji, not an ask you one. What did you say?
Do you have a last parting thought or a shout out that you want to share before we drop off?
One thing that I learned myself and got feedback from my colleagues is you learn so much more if you do plugins than doing shops, because as an agency, if you do shops, you just go through the business and the customer needs, the business functionalities, and you just need to make it work in any way. If you go for serious plugins, they have to work in the way how they are meant to work, in the Shopware way, for all these different Shopware versions in combination with different plugins. So that's where it gets split. So doing some plugins, some serious plugins helps a lot to learn Shopware.
Right. Good point. And I think Shopper will be happy to get the submissions on the store. That's brilliant. All right, Mark, any parting thoughts except for sign up for Community Hub?
Oh, come on. You got to give me that one. Watch out for Community Hub. It's coming in November. And the thing that's really important is, yes, bits of it will be a bit rough and ready, but please contribute to the learning content.
Yeah, absolutely good point. And then yes, I can guess go to yearho.com to book your
No,
course.
I'm not that commercial. So I personally also created videos on the Shopper site, and I'm just fine
Yes.
with people watching those videos or getting rid of them, turning them into Markdown files. That's all for me, totally fine. But no, I think actually the main thing that I would like to bring is we've been talking about newcomers, but what about all of the experienced developers? Frequently, I encounter senior developers that are actually not up to date on the new PHP 8 attributes that are supported out of the box by the latest Shopware version. And that's such a breeze to create code in as a backend developer. But that requires you to actually dive into the new stuff and experiment with things and enjoy the learning process along with it as well. So in short, my main point would be keep learning whatever you do, because if you stop learning, then it gets boring. And I hope to see everyone online at the Community Hub and live at the Connect conference of Shopware United in February.
Absolutely.
But that's the thing I take away from you, I guess, Sander.
No, that's fine. Then I don't need to do any sign off. Thank you all very much for coming out. Thank you for joining the session. We have it recorded, so we will also be sharing this online. And see you next week at Solutions Specialist Training. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.